Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. Now it's Thursday today, miserable day in the UK, but I hope we'll be able to cheer up those of you who watch the channel from the UK because we've got a really interesting looking puzzle. This has come into the channel from Christoph Seeliger, the brilliant German puzzle constructor, and he was inspired to make this by a video we did about a week or so ago called Pi R squared, which was a beautiful, beautiful construction from Nathan Gilbert, which involved the constants pi and e and sandwich and killer Sudoku. And Christoph thought he would try his hand at making a variant. Now, this puzzle looks to me to be, well, it looks an extraordinary construction. As I was putting it into our software, you can see that these cages are completely unlabeled, and these are killer Sudoku cages. But all we know about each cage is that it must sum to a square number. So if we look, this cage, for example, that must sum to either 1, 4, 9, 16, 25 or 36. And some of those you can immediately rule out. But that's all we know. And apparently this is solvable. Christoph says it's quite hard and it might not be suitable for a video, so I might be mad in attempting it, but I'm going to try it, and if you want to have a go yourselves, then just click on the URL link under the video. That'll take you to exactly this web page where you should be able to try the puzzle on whichever device takes your fancy. Quick bit of admin before I try this, to try and solve this. Those of you who've bought the Sandwich Sudoku app, firstly thank you, I guess, but also the next 5 puzzles are up and running. They have been for a couple of days now, so if you haven't tried the new 5 puzzles, there's obviously 5 new puzzles each month the first year, then do revisit the app because you should find a nice surprise. Now, with that, let's take a look at this. Now, how would I start this? Well, I think I've got to start either in this box or this box, simply because at least there are complete cages within these boxes. You can see, or I can see that in this box there are 4 square numbers that add up to 45, because we know that every 3x3 will add up to 45 in a Sudoku, because it will contain the numbers from 1 to 9. If we add those numbers up, that's what we get. And this one also, therefore, this is 3 different squares, must add to 45. So, let's just think about this for a moment. We've got a 4 cell cage here. So if we're going to try and make 3 cages add, so if 2 of these were 16, that would give us 32. That would make the other cage have to equal 13, which is not a square. So we're not using 2 16s. If we use 16 and 9, that's 25, so the other one's 20, so that's not going to work. So we have to use 25. And the only cage that can be 25 is the 4 cell cage, because the most I could make a 3 cell cage add up to would be 24. Not that that's square, but that is the maximum. So this must be 25, and these 2 cages must therefore add to 20, which means they must be 16 cage and a 4 cage. Right. So I can do the 4 cage. This must be the 4 cage. That must be a 1 and a 3. This is a 6. I need to find some way of labeling these, I think, so I'm going to use colours. So, right, 4 cages are going to be green. 16 cages, the 6 would transpose to that colour, so we'll use that colour for 16. 25 would be, we'll use that colour. And 9 cages, therefore, we're going to use that blue colour. And I don't know if there are any 36 cages, but let's come back to that if we need to. Right, so we've got a 1 and a 3 here, and I'm not actually sure I can work out anything more about how these cages divide. It is possible this one has a 2 in it, but it's possible this one has a 2 in it as well. Well, let's come back and look at this box then. Here we've got 4 squares that add up to 45, and we've only got the maximum size of cage is 3 cells. So the maximum square involved in this, therefore, is 16. So, and that's interesting. The most number of 16s we could have would be 2, because we could have a 16 in here and a 16 in one of these. But after that, we couldn't repeat 16 again, because a 16 is obviously a 7 and a 9. And then if we had a 7 and a 9, we couldn't make 16 another way. So the maximum number of 16s in this 3x3 is 2. And if there's one 16 and 3 9s, that doesn't add to 45. So okay, right. So this is definitely going to be 2 16 cages, which add to 32, and then a 4 cage and a 9 cage. Right. Now, if we need 2 16 cages, one of those 16 cages must be the 3-cell cage. This is very clever so far. Not that I'd expect anything less from Christoph. He is a brilliant, brilliant setter. Oh, good Lord. I mean, I don't know how on earth do I work out which is the other 16 cage? I don't think I can. Okay. How is this puzzle even solvable? I'm a bit reluctant to get. Some of these other cages are so open. I mean, this one is. So let's have a look at this one. This is more in desperation than anything else. Right. So here I've got 3 different squares and an extra cell. And I suppose the most number of 16 cages I could have would be, I could have 3 16 cages here actually, because this could be a 16 cage and then these could both be 16 cages. Although that's probably not possible, because if this was 7 and 9, this would be, it could be 853 or 862. But the other cage couldn't add up to 16, so then I could only have 2 16 cages in here. So 2 16 cages would be 32, and the 16 cages could be arranged as one of these and one of these, or the 2 3-cell 16 cages. Goodness me. The 2 16s are 32, and then I'd have another square cell, which would be, that could be 4 or 9, but it couldn't be 16. And if I had a 16 cage and 2 9 cages, that is it. Okay, right. So if I have 1 16 cage and 2 9 cages, this square would have to add up to 11, and it can't. So therefore I do have 2 16 cages as the base here. Let's imagine they're here, just for the sake of me thinking about this. So that would be 32. These 3 cells would have to sum to 13. So this could be a 4, which would make that a 9. Or it could be a 9, and that would make this a 4. So this square is a 4 or a 9. And I've got these 3 cells. There's definitely 2 16 cages among them. And so if this was a 16 cage, that would be a 7 and a 9. And then I need another 16 cage, which would have to involve an 8. And then either a 9 cage or a 4 cage. but I can't, if this was the 16 cage, I can't make either of these two squares equal a 4 cage. So these would have to be a 9 cage, one of these two. And this one can't, no, this one can't be a 9 cage, because look, there's a 1 and a 3 already in the row. So this couldn't be a 9 cage. And this can't be a 4 cage. So this one is a 16 cage. Goodness me. And that is going to be helpful, because now look, I've got two 16 cages and a 4 cage. That adds up to 36. I know the row adds up to 45, so that square is a 9. Wow. Wow. Okay. Now, so this one, this is a 16 cage that doesn't involve, of course, I could have done this before. This is a 16 cage that doesn't involve a 9, and it doesn't involve a 7, because one of these cages is a 16 cage. So that means there is an 8 in here. Oops, didn't mean to do that. It's not going to work. I want to put 8. And therefore, the other two cells in this box have to add up to 8. And they can't be 1, 7, and they can't be 3, 5. So this is a 2, 6, 8 cage, and I could have done that ages ago. 2, 6, 8. I wouldn't have got the 9 though, so I suppose I've made some advance. This must be 4, 5, 7. Now as this is 4, 5, 7, that square is a 9. And that is useful, because that means this is not a 16 cage. That means this is a 16 cage without using a 7 and a 9. So it must involve an 8, and it can't, the other two squares add up to 8, and they can't be 5, 3, and they can't be 1, 7. So this is 8, 2, 6 again. And this must be 1, 3. Right. My goodness me, this is, I mean, this is incredible. Absolutely incredible. This is resolvable, or seems to be actually resolving itself. Right, so now this 1, 3 means this can't be the 4 cage, this can't be the 4 cage, because obviously I can't put a 1 or a 3 in here. So the only cage that can be the 4 cage is that one. So, that cage must be a 1 and a 3. This 9, therefore, fixes a 9 here. That means that's a 7, because now this cage can't add up to 9. It must add up to 16. And therefore, this must be a 9 cage. And it must be 4, 5. 4, 5. This 16 cage still needs 7 more. So it needs a 2 and a 5. Because it can't have 1, 6, it can't have 3, 4. So these squares now are 4, 6, 7, 8. And obviously we can do a little bit of tidying up here. These two can't be 4 and 7. So this is 6 and 8. Therefore these two can't be 6 and 8. They are 4 and 7. This 5 points at that square. So that's a 2. That's a 5. And somehow we've actually made some progress. That is incredible. Now this 9 is part of a 2-cell cage, so in order for this to be a square, this must be 16. Let's colour it in. That 7 means that's not a 7. But there's literally no way of making progress now unless we resolve something in the top of the grid. So I'm going to look at this cage simply because we've got a number in it. So I've got two 3-cell squares, plus 7, plus something have got to equal 45. So if these squares are both, the maximum they can be is 16, the minimum they can be is 9. So if they are both 9, 25, that would break the cage. These two squares would have to add up to 20. That's not possible. So there is at least one 16. If there are two 16s, 32, 39, these would have to add up to 6. that would make that a 3. Because we couldn't put a 10 in there. If this is a 16 and a 9, that would be 25, plus 7 is 32. This would have to add up to 13, and that would still be a 3. Good grief. Okay, so that's incredible. So that's always a 3. However, these numbers are split. So if that's a 3, that's a 3, and that's a 1. There's a 3 in one of those two squares. And I don't know how to resolve that. I can't resolve it yet. Okay, so let's have a look at this box now. Now this box, yeah, okay, I'm going to be able to do something with this box just the same way again. So you can see, one thing I just want to say, if you're solving this along with me or you've already solved it, this is just this is why I love handcrafted puzzles, because we are being taken on a linear journey here. You can see how this puzzle has been constructed. You know, it's clearly been designed. We have to start down here. We eke our way into some logic down here. And now we're moving up this side, and we're being led on a journey. And it's a journey that it's stretching. Well, it's stretching me. It's making me think, and it really is. Joyful. I just love puzzles like this. Now, having said that, I've got to finish it. So 3. This could be 25. This could only be 16. So okay, but that's interesting, isn't it? Because if we try and make that 2 lots of 16, we only get to 32. Plus 3 is 35. That would make that cell a 10, which is impossible. So this is a 25 cage. And 25 plus 3 is 28. So if this could be a 9 or a 16. If it's a 9, that has to be an 8. If it's a 16, that has to be a 1. So this is a 1 or an 8. We still don't know whether that's a 9 or 16. We don't know whether this is a 9 or 16. But look, now this, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. This 7 and 9 suddenly become important, because now the 7 and the 9 must be in the 25 box. 7 add 9 and 9 add up to 16. So the other two squares, oh, fantastic. The other two squares have to add up to 9. Now look at this 1, 8 option here. That means 1 and 8 are not possible as a way of making 9 in the two additional cells in this box. So 1, 8, we can't use that. 2, 7, we can't use that, but we'll repeat the 7. 3, 6, we can't use. So this cage is 4, 5, 7, 9 for sure. Now that means there must be a 2 and a 6 in these 3 squares. And that means the other square is a 1 or an 8. But it's not. Look, we can eliminate a 2 and a 6 from that square. So that becomes an 8. So now the 8 must be here, which means this contains a 1. So this is a 9 cage. That is amazing. That is amazing. Okay, so this is 3, 4, or 5. 3, 4, or 5. 2, 6. 1, 1. There must be a 1 in there. But again, it could go here and it could go here. 19 minutes into the video. I'm not even sniffing halfway through. Right, 8. So these, so this must be a 16 cage, right? Because it can't be a 9 cage. So these two squares have got to add up to 8, but they can't be 2 and 6. They can't be 3 and 5. So they are 1 and 7. 7. Okay. So we've got these add up to 8. We've then got 2 more squares. Right, so the maximum these could be would be 16. If these were both 16, that would be 32 plus 8. This would be a 5. If this was 9 and 16, 25 plus 8 is too small. That would make that square too big. So this is a 5. Therefore, that's got to be a 4, because the only option then is for this to be a 9. 5. And these two both add to 16. But this 3 means this one contains a 3. So the other 2 cells here have to add up to 13. We can't use 5 and 8. We can't use 6 and 7. So this is 3, 4, 9. That's not a 4. 3, 4, 9. So this is 2, 6, 8 again. That's come up quite a few times so far. So that square's got to be a 1. It can't be a 2 or a 6. 2, 6, 8. And that can't be a 4. And in fact, look, if we look at this cage, there's a 4 in one of those 2 squares. So those 2 squares can't be 4. This square is 4. And therefore these 3 squares are 5, 7 and 9. Look down here. Look at this 7 and 9. Resolving that this one has to be a 5. Which means... So this 5 cell cage has got a 7 and a 9 in it now. So now we know this square, this is a 25 cage. Because it can't be a 16 cage, obviously can't be a 36 cage. We can't get to 36 in 5 different digits. So the other 3 squares here have got to add up to 9. But that is alright. That is interesting, because look at this 8. So now, where can I put an 8 in this box, given that I can't put an 8 in the 25 cage, otherwise it'll break? It must go here. That's not an 8 down there. This square must be a 3. This must be a 16 cage. So what have I got left here to put in? I've got to, in this box, I've still got to put in 1, 2, 3 and 6. So the only options for this, to make this a square, it's either got to be 3 and 6, or it's got to be 1 and 3. And is there a way of resolving that? If it's 1 and 3, that would have to be a 3, that would have to be a 1, and that would put 2 and 6 into these squares. Ah, that doesn't work. Look, there. That breaks, because that would give 3 lots of 2 and 6 in the same row. So this is not right. That's not 1, 3. So it must be 6, 3, which means it must be in... It must be 3 here and 6 here. So that's 6, that's 2. This must be 1 and 2 into these squares. That, therefore, must be a 6. 2. This square cannot be a 1 anymore. That's a 7. That's a 1. That means that's a 7. That's not 7 anymore. Therefore, this is a 7. And are we starting to make progress? This is a 9. And I'm stuck again. Okay, well let's have a look down. There must be a 1 in one of these two squares. Ah, sorry, there's a 6 there, so that is a 2. So this is 1 and 4. There's not 1 here. 2, 6, 8. 3 resolves, so this is... Oh, I pressed the wrong button then. I didn't mean to do that. Undo. This must be the 3 here. That's a 1. That's a 1, that's a 2. That's a 4, that's a 5. The 6 here resolves the 6 and the 8. Let's do some tidying up with the colours before I get my OCD affecting me. There we go. That must be 16 as well. And we don't know about this one. And this one must be, well, 4 squares add up to at least 10. So this can't be a 9 cage. Given it's got a 1 and a 4 in it, it can't be a 25 cage. So this is a 16 cage. These 2 squares therefore must add up to 11. But they can't be 3, 8, they can't be 4, 7, they can't be 5, 6. So these 2 squares are 2 and 9. Goodness me, that is incredible. 2, 9, that means that's 9, 7. This square now is, in theory, not a 6. Why can't my scanning work? That's got to be a 5. These 2 squares now must be 8 and 7. And there's a 7 here, so that's 7 and 8 there. For these, let's put the colours in correctly. These squares are not part of square cells. You can see that from the dots. The dots are on the inside, obviously, of the cells, not the outside. So, right, how do we finish this? 3, 6, 7, 8. Let's have a look at this. So what are the options? We know one of these squares. We know one of these squares is a 3, and it must be this one. So that's probably what I was missing. This is not 3 anymore. So if this is a 4, this would have to be a 2, which it can't be, or a 9, which it can't be. So this is not 4. This is 5. That's 4. That's 5. This must be an 8. No, it could be. I was about to make a mistake then, but it didn't. I got away with it. Obviously, this could have been a 1, but it can't be a 1 because there's a 1 there. So it must be an 8. And 16. This, yeah, maybe there's a restriction here. We need 3, 4, 6, and 8. Nearly. So that's got to be a 4 or a 6, that square. 3, and that's got to be 4 or 8. 6. Right, we've got very limited squares left to work with. Let's look at this one. So this is, if this adds up to 9, this must be 2 and 4, which would mean that's a 4 and that's a 2. Now, is that impossible? I can't see why that would be impossible. If this is 16 cage, this would have to add up to 13, and then it would be 4 and 9, which means this square is always 4, and this could be a 9, but that 4 sees that square forcing it to be an 8, which means this is not an 8, and then 2 there resolves, that's a 6. I mean, this is just sublime puzzling. Now we need 1, 2, and 9 into those squares now. You can see we've got a 9 up here. 2, 9. I don't know, maybe I'm being slow about this. I don't feel like I am. But maybe I've missed some logic that would have made this easier. Now, okay, so what are the options now for these 2 squares? One of them, 2 or 9. One of them must be a 6. I still don't know which one. And then the other square must be a 2 or a 9. Ah, now look. This one can never be either a 2 or a 9, so this must always be a 6. Now this must be a 2 or an... actually that can't be an 8. And that 5 resolves the 5 and the 9 at the top, which I should have had before. So now that is a 9, that's a 2. This is not a 9. 2, 6, 1, 2. So this needs to be that colour. That was a 16 cage in the end. And this square finally is a 3. These two squares must be 6 and 9, and that does resolve, and that's going to finish it, isn't it? Because now we get 6, 8, we get 8, 2, we get 2, 1, we get 1, 3, we get 3, 4. This is ridiculous. Ridiculous puzzle. And these two squares are 5 and 7, and please don't let me have made a mistake. Yes, okay, fantastic. What a fantastic puzzle. Very difficult. Sorry, half an hour video. Well, I don't know. Maybe we'll get loads of emails saying, no, I should have done it in 10 minutes or something. But that felt quite hard to me. So do let me know what you thought. I have to say I loved it, and we'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.